Hey, welcome to the Restaurant Coach Podcast. It is the cure for the common restaurant. I am joined back in the studio today with my partners in Restaurant Simplified, Darren Manzari and Pamela Lee. Welcome back to part 2 of our little series on how to grow your profits in the next 30 days.
Thanks, Donald. Thanks for having me here. Yeah. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, so on the first part of the series, we kind of gave an overview of what you need to do to really kind of grow your profits. And today what we want to do is we want to kind of narrow this down a little bit. We want to go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole, as they say. And we're going to talk about 3 of the main things that everyone must do, not should do, must do, if you really want to grow your profits in 30 days. And the first thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to lead this thing off, and I'm going to talk about mindset, but specifically mindset. We talked a little bit about mindset yesterday. I really want to talk about habits and also having a really solid plan. And we've shown some people some of the stuff yesterday. We talked about a little bit about our mastermind group and things like that. What I really want to talk about is there's like a path, I would say, to restaurant success. And most restaurants start at the bottom of this kind of valley of mediocrity. And if you looked at any market right now, if I looked out in any market, doesn't matter where I go in the world, 60% of all restaurants kind of fall in this average or kind of bad category. And actually, I could even probably expand it up to like 60, 70, 80% of all restaurants in any market are average or bad restaurants. Okay. Now, when you're in that bad category, I hate to say it's, things suck. Okay. But then as you move up towards that, I call it the summit of outstanding. You move up to that good category, and good is good. And I hate to say as good is kind of, it's all right. Things aren't great, but they're not like you're not living down in the valley of mediocrity any longer. And when you get to that level of being outstanding, where you really stand out in front of the market, you really don't have competition anymore. And our goal is always in any of our coaching programs, especially with our mastermind group, is we want to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. And our kind of course that we're going to get you on is we're going to get you out of this valley of mediocrity. We're going to get you up to base camp. Okay. And then we're going to get you under the good path. And this, you can see as we get higher up the kind of elevation as far as the standards that we expect, you can see the journey gets a little more challenging, as they say. Because if it was easy, everyone could do it. And I'm a big believer. I say that restaurant success is not rocket science; it's people science. If you understand the people and you work on those things, it's get people to the top where they need to be. In fact, we kind of have like different programs. We have like an integrated coaching suite that we teach. So like, at the bad category, most restaurants don't even, they might call us, they might not. Most restaurants that get to base camp, they know that there's a better way. When you get to base camp here, you kind of realize, and you can easily join the Restaurant Coach Nation. It's a free Facebook group. And then from there, people can go to the good area. We have a couple different programs there. We have the Restaurant Coach University. And then if you really want to get to the great area, there's 2 different paths you can take. You either go to the Restaurant Owner Academy, which is my private coaching, or we have our Restaurant Simplified Mastermind group, which is probably the program most people should really, really look at today, especially with the way COVID is and with the way kind of finances are and your economy and your, what you have to spend. It's a great way to get started. And we've got how many people we got now in our mastermind group? Like 60 people total?
Yeah, no, more than that. We're just about at 20 people in the current one we're doing now. Like the Q&A call we did today, we had a lot of people on the Q&A call.
That was true. That's true.
Yeah, so it's really growing quick. And I just want to pause and comment. I love hearing you talk, Donald, and sometimes I want to just jump in and comment on something.
Sure.
But then I let you go. So then I got to think back what you said. But for the people on the podcast, and you're not watching this, Donald has a picture of like a mountain in front of you, right? And it shows this line from base camp or from the valley of mediocrity, up through base camp and then good culture and then great culture, and you're going towards the top. And if you're what we called valley of mediocrity, and we call that like a bad or toxic culture, just by the fact that you're on this course, And just by the fact that you're listening to this podcast, you're already taking steps towards that climb. Because to be on this podcast, you're probably realizing that there's a problem. You're realizing that it can be better. So I just want to say, if you're in that spot, don't get upset about it. Don't worry about it, because you don't have to stay there. You don't have to live in that valley forever. And it sounds like you're already searching in that right direction. You're already looking in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So we'll be able to help you with that. Don't worry about that at all.
Yeah, Pam, you want to add to that?
Well, I want you to bring this up again when we talk a little bit. We're going to actually talk a little bit about statistics, very little. I don't want to scare anybody, but
scared me.
Well, the very basic thing, most people have learned about what a standard deviation is, what average is. So if you look at that valley of mediocrity, and Donald, you said that something like somewhere between 60 and 80% of restaurants live there. So statistically speaking, 66% of anything lives in the average range. And then you've got some below, and then you've got some above. The ones that are below that average, when we're talking about restaurants, close their doors. And then the ones that are above that average are the ones that are climbing up the mountain. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how to stay up that mountain, but we'll get there in a minute.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I always kind of I say, look at the bell curve. If you look at the bell curve that's out there, and this goes back to school, right in the middle is like your C students. And unfortunately, that's where most restaurants are. Most restaurants are average. Most restaurants are that C level. They're not, and if you look to this, like this little kind of bell curve we have here on the screen, right in the middle, of course, where the biggest hump is of the bell curve, that's the means. That's kind of the average. That's where 60% of most of the market is. Now, if I look to the left of this bell curve, there's a slope at the very beginning. That's that 20% that are bad. And if I look to the right, if I go slightly to the right, that's the ones that are good. That's about 15%. And to the far, far right, the ones that are very, very on the far right, those would be like your A students. That's what I call outstanding. And that's only like 5% of restaurants that are outstanding. And the biggest thing I'm going to say is going to get you from here to there is changing your habits. And what do I mean by changing your habits? We all have, I hate to say that, your restaurant, and I would say hashtag, write this shit down. Your restaurant is a reflection of your habits, plain and simple. And here's a simple way to look at it. If your restaurant's running really great, you're having high profits, your team seems to be on top of everything, the systems are working, and it just seems like your restaurant pretty much runs itself without you having to kind of like be micromanaging everything and controlling everything, then you have more good habits than bad habits. Now, if your restaurant's not running very well, not running very efficiently, seems like you got a lot of turnover, your profits are really low, it seems like every day is a struggle, every day it seems like you're jumping into a high volume river and you're fighting the current every day just to stay above, and keep your head above water, then you have more bad habits than good habits. Yes. Now, here's where the tricky part comes in. Awareness precedes choice, and choice precedes change. That's why getting a coach or getting involved in a mastermind group is so valuable, in a sense that it gives you self-awareness. You don't know what you don't know. And I always ask people this question: do you have a blind spot?
Do I have a blind spot? I wish I had a blind spot.
We have lots of blind spots. Right? We have a lot of blind spots.
That's why they're called blind spots. People don't know what their blind spots are. They're blind spots.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this call and you don't think you have any blind spots,
that's your first one.
That's your first blind spot.
That's the first one. But just ask some of the people you work with. They'll be very happy to tell you what some of those blind spots are.
Exactly. And that's why having like good business partners, or having mentors, or having, coaches, or being in a mastermind group is so valuable. I mean, even myself, I have some blind spots, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Donald, you don't have blind spots." Yes, I have blind spots because I'm a human being and I have blind spots like everyone else. And Darren, being a great partner in our company, is very happy and very good at pointing out my blind spots without insulting me. Which that's another good thing too. It's like, you want someone who can tell you about your blind spots, but does not beat you up about it. Because And I know every time Darren says something to me, he wants me to be better because then I know when I become better, I'm better for our clients. I'm a better coach. I'm a better person. And so, and I'm just going to be honest with you. Sometimes when people come to you and address the blind spots with you, you might not be very receptive to it. But if you just pause and process and understand it's for your growth, you say, you know what? He's right. I need to really take a look at that. I need to take some action, and I need to implement what they say. So you can grow, and everyone can grow. Everyone can improve better. One of the things we really believe in our mastermind group is a concept called Kaizen. It's a Japanese term, constant never-ending improvement. We talk about it all the time. Kaizen is how we live our lives as mastermind coaches. And our whole goal is to just constantly and never-ending get better a little bit each day. That's all we want to do.
If you're listening to this call and you could adopt Kaizen into every area of your life,
change.
We'll just say thanks so much for tuning in. Your life's about to get better from this point forward.
Exactly.
Everyone.
That's a mic drop moment right there.
It is.
If you adapt Kaizen, mic drop right there.
That's it. Our job is done.
Exactly. But most people, they don't think about that stuff. So changing your habits is not easy, but it's required. Mm-hmm. Because doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is what they call insanity. And sadly, that's how 80% of restaurants operate. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, and they hope something changes. Well, hope's not a strategy.
I'm going to share a personal philosophy with everybody.
Sure.
I don't believe in a New Year's resolution.
I don't either.
If you have to make a New Year's resolution, then you need to examine what have you been doing the entire prior year that made it so that you need one. Why have you not been just working towards that goal for the entire prior year?
Exactly. I love it when people say, I'm going to start on Monday.
What's so great about Monday?
I know. And then what happens is Monday happens and it comes around and they don't do anything. And they're like, oh, shit, I got to start on Tuesday. Well, why don't you just start, why can't you just start now? Oh, no, I can't. I got to wait till next Monday. People give excuses. Every time I hear someone say to me, I'm going to start next week, I know they're not going to do anything.
Who is that best-selling author who had that quote, when would now be a good time? Who has that, Donald?
I know the guy. He's probably got all over his walls. I know he's got a mug back there on the shelf that says, when would now be a good time?
Correct. The first time, if you're on this podcast, I met Donald when we were opening our restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I sought out a consultant and I said, who's the best that could come help me? And Donald came out to help us at our restaurant. That's a whole story in itself. But one of the first things I noticed was he had like either pens or hats, but he had these logos around that said, when would now be a good time? Mm-hmm. And I was like, we need to adopt that right now in this restaurant. Everybody needs to adopt that. I never want to hear, I'll do it next week. We'll do it now. Let's just start right now.
When would now be a good time?
Yeah.
So as you can see on our summit of outstanding, we have different checkpoints. Checkpoint 1 is you have to make a commitment that, listen, you know what? I'm not gonna settle for average. I'm not gonna have things the way they were. I make a commitment to start doing things different. And then checkpoint 2 is we're gonna have to adopt and change your mindset. Checkpoint 3 is after I got my mind right, I got to start having that influence, because that's what leadership's about, really, is having influence. I got to have influence on my team. After that, we got to really dial in your operations, make sure my operations are great. And then the final thing, again, is leadership. And if you really look at this thing, it actually is like a circle, and it kind of feeds itself. So as you go through this kind of checklist to checkpoints to the top, then it starts over again. It's never ending. It's not like you reach the top and then you're done. It's always like I'm going back through it, and basically I go through it one time, it's 1.0. Now I go through it again, it's 2.0. Now I go through it again, it's 3.0. And every time it's an upgrade. Every time it's an upgrade. So you could actually, this is a self-perpetuating kind of wheel of awesomeness. It's like kind of to describe it, is you can actually take this and you can keep taking your restaurant to the next level. And then when you get to that level, take it to the next level. There's never, ever really a final destination if you don't want it ever to be.
No, it could always be better. Kaizen, right?
It's always Kaizen. Yeah. So when we talk about this stuff, and we're talking about in the calls today, we're going to give you again I'm going to give you the first kind of couple sets. Number 1 and 2 is kind of like my big thing. You got to make a commitment, and you got to change your mindset. Mm-hmm. Then from there, the team is another kind of complex stuff. But the one thing I want to kind of dive into next is I really want to talk about KPIs. Because when I talk about changing habits, one of the habits that we really implement with our Restaurant Simplified Mastermind group is we have this really cool thing called a KPI dashboard. And if you're on the call yesterday, you saw a little bit of the dashboard. It's really, really cool. It's basically you can dial in and you put in a couple numbers every day, and it basically gives you this really, really cool dashboard. And I'll show a picture of it in a little bit. Yeah. But what I want you to understand is that one of our things we want to do is when we talk about creating habits, we want you to get in the habit of looking at your numbers every single day. And Darren gave me a really great challenge, or he actually gave me a great analogy, and I tried it this morning.
Did you?
I did try it this morning, and I didn't go too far because I'll tell you in this challenge. So Darren's like, Donald, you go to Orange Theory every morning. Here's what I want you to do. You go to the workout, right? I go, yeah. He says, do you have a towel you take to the gym? I go, yeah, I have a towel. Yeah. He goes, when you get in your car, just throw your towel over your dashboard before you start your car up. Don't even look at anything. Just throw the towel over your dashboard, start your car up. So I did. And so, I backed up, which I was okay backing up, closed the garage door. I started driving down the street, and I started freaking out because I was like, dude, how much gas do I have? I knew I was getting low too. And then I started freaking out because I was like, do I have enough gas to get there? And I had my dad. And then I pulled onto the highway, and in Scottsdale, we have like this 101. I pulled on that 101, and traffic's moving pretty fast. And I'm driving, I'm going, and I'm like 2 minutes down the highway, and I'm like really starting to freak out because I can't see my dashboard at all now. I don't know if, am I even in the right gear? I don't know what I'm doing. And then the traffic seems to move pretty fast. And I saw state police on the side. I'm like, am I going too fast? And then finally I just couldn't take it. I had to pull the towel off and I had to look. And I was speeding. So I'm lucky and happy he didn't pull me over. I was like, oh no, that would have been a bad ticket. But Darren made the analogy is like, how did it, and then he's like, well, how would that make you feel? And I'll tell you right now, I was freaked out. But that's how most people run their restaurants.
Yes. And that's it. Like all you were doing was driving to Orange Theory. Could you imagine running your restaurant day after day after day, the business that's not only supporting you, but supporting every one of your employees and their families in return? And you're taking that all to chance if you're not looking at a dashboard. So I'm glad you did that. And I'm glad you didn't get a speeding ticket.
Yeah, I'm telling you though, at first I was like, I thought it was gonna be pretty easy. It's like, I could drive to Orange. And Darren challenged me. You think you could drive to Orange Theory with a towel over your dad? Oh yeah, no, I could do it, right? No, I couldn't do it. But then I started, like Darren mentioned, I was like, how do people run their restaurant not looking at their numbers every single day?
So notice, so you had to go as fast as everybody else was going, right?
I was, yeah.
You couldn't tell how fast you were going. So you're like, I'll just do what they're doing.
Let's do what they're doing.
That's how to work. And that's what restaurant owners do that a lot.
Oh my God, all the time, right?
Yeah.
I'll price my burger what they price their burger.
Yeah. Yeah, we ask people in our mastermind group all the time, hey, where'd you get that? How'd you get the price for that? Oh, well, that's what the place down the street charges. And then we always like, well, how do you know they're making money?
Correct.
And then I don't. And I go, oh, okay. So that's not good.
Now that's a great observation, Pam, that you just made, because, the whole purpose of the analogy was just to show how do you run, without looking, but you're exactly right. People tend to do what other people tend to do. They tend to do what they see. I hate to say we're a culture of lemmings, but we are a little bit, we are doing it, we do it. So that was excellent.
Yeah, it was a crazy exercise, and I was going to tell you this morning, but I thought I'd share it for the podcast, the story, because I was like, I was freaking out. I thought I had it okay. I was like, I drive there every day, right? I know the road. I know the exit to take. I don't have to get on my GPS or nothing like that. I know the road. I know where to go. But boy, I tell you, and the thing that actually freaked me out was gas, because I know I was getting low, and I still had a quarter of a tank when I finally took the towel down. But I tell you though, the panic of like running out of gas on the highway and then having to be late for class and then it started snowballing everything. Because then I know we had a mastermind call, and it's like, if I'm late for class and I can't go to class, oh my God, then I gotta go get gas. It just started like this whole spiral of anxiety, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to have Darren come on today, and for those listening to the podcast, we'll try to describe this as much as possible. If you're watching the YouTube video, you'll have the visual representation of it. But what the things we look at in our Restaurant Simplified Mastermind group is there's 12 KPIs we look at. And the thing we say all the time is not all KPIs are created equal. And what I want Darren to do is I want Darren to explain there's what we call linear KPIs and multiplicative KPIs. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what the word multiplicative was till I met Darren. So,
okay, that's fine. Thank you. And one thing I want to do is, and I would not have done this if it wasn't for one of our mastermind calls this morning, right? Mm-hmm. One thing I didn't realize is Donald's been talking about the fact that we're going to talk about KPIs today. And I just want to make sure everybody knows what a KPI is. This happened on the call this morning. We were talking about KPIs, and one of the members said, hey, what's a KPI? They put in the chat, KPI question mark. What is that? And we made the assumption, blind spot on my part, and Donald's part, and Pamela's part, that everybody knew what a KPI is. So I don't want to make that mistake again. So just, basically a KPI, it stands for Key Performance Indicator, okay? And what this is it's a way to measure a specific part of your business, right? So this could be a process within your business. It could be, just a component of your business, something that's integral to profitability or performance or customer service. And it gives us a way to measure it and see how it's doing so that, with the intent on improving it. That's mm-hmm. what a KPI is. That's not the textbook definition, but it comes probably pretty close.
Yeah, we always say, if it's a KPI to us is something that you need to measure and manage to improve. That's what we look at, right?
Yeah. So we relate it to the dashboard mm-hmm. because think of like your gas gauge as a KPI. It's measuring how much gas is in your car. Your speedometer is a KPI. It's measuring how fast you're going, right? And now your business is going to have certain KPIs in them. One of them being, like Pam mentioned yesterday, profitability, right? That's an actual KPI that's affected by many other KPIs, which you're going to see right here. Mm-hmm. So do you want me to jump right into this, Donald?
Yeah, sure. So we're going to do like a little case study. And Darren always calls this a really good case study.
Yeah, so this is a case study of your average restaurant in the United States. So the numbers that we're going to use here, this is, if you looked at all the restaurants in the United States, this probably is representative of an average restaurant. And we're going to talk about the difference between a linear KPI and a multiplicative KPI, right? So let's look at the restaurant first. Here are the baseline numbers, because I know some of you are just listening to this on the podcast, so I'll just say everything. But basically, this restaurant does 100 guests per day. They are open 5 days per week. And their GCA, which stands for guest check average, is $35. This means they're going to do $3,500 a day in sales. They're going to average $70,000 a month in sales, or $840,000 a year, right? So that's your average restaurant. Their food cost, if we say they're doing a good job and they have a 30% food cost, they're going to spend $252,000 a year in food. They're going to keep their labor right at 30%. So they're going to spend another $252,000 in labor costs. And then their fixed expenses are running about 36% or $302,400. This leaves them a 4% profit margin, or they're clearing, when it's all said and done, $33,600. Now, where we come up with these numbers, again, this is the average restaurant. Mm-hmm. And the average restaurant, and Donald could back this up, he's been working with restaurants not only in this country, but around the world for many, many years. But in the United States, I think we're right between 3 and 5%. Is that right, Donald?
Yep. Exactly. 5% is the national average, actually, in the restaurant in the United States, especially.
Okay, good. So our numbers are not off then. They're not far off. Okay, good. So now this owner, he's sick of living in the valley of mediocrity, as Donald said.
I love it. Valley of mediocrity.
He's going to climb Mount Everest. So what do? You call a Sherpa, right? And a Sherpa is like a consultant that gets you up Mount Everest. Well, this restaurant guy is going to call his Sherpa, and he's going to call a consultant and say, hey, how do we improve our restaurant? What should we do here? So consultant A is pretty good. He's got a good reputation in our industry, and he's known to get results. And he says here, consultant A suggests we should create an advertising campaign, and that'll increase the effectiveness of our image. We'll up our image. Our goal will be increasing our guest count by 20%. So we're going to get 20% more customers, increase our guest count. And if we do this and this all works, these are the projected results. Okay?
In which there are a lot of consultants out there today, and we see these ads all the time. Darren and I and Pam, we see these ads all over Facebook, all over Instagram. We'll drive more people to your restaurant.
Correct.
Right.
More guests.
More guests.
And so these results are actually assuming that they were successful in that they actually do get 20% more people in the door.
Yes, correct. We're making an assumption that they're going to succeed 100% on their projections. So thank you for that. That's very important. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this plan together, and we're going to up our guest count from 100 guests per day to now 120 guests per day. We're still going to remain open 5 days a week. We're still going to have a $35 guest check average. Now our sales, though, are going to jump to $4,200 a day in sales. Okay, so that's really good.
That's exciting.
We're now going to make $84,000 a month.
Oh my God, that's even more exciting.
That's right. And our annual income, we broke that ceiling of that $1 million ceiling, and we are now doing $1 million and $8,000. So $1,008,000 in sales. Right, there's what Donald calls your vanity metric. Hey, I did $1 million in sales last year, right?
Tell all my friends at the country club.
We're still going to maintain our 30% food costs. So we now are $302,400 in food costs. Our labor costs we're going to hold right at 30%. So that's another $302,000. And our fixed expenses didn't change. So our fixed expenses are still $302,400, but now they only represent 30% of the total. So we actually did better. We had to put some money into advertising. So we have a $6,000 billboard, right? So that's $500 a month. That's the average price of a billboard. We have one for our restaurant. That's what we pay. And we're going to put an advertising campaign together, spend another $500 a month in advertising. So that's another $6,000. When we add all that up, we're going to increase our profit. This consultant actually doubled our profit. Okay, so we went from a 4% profit. We're now at an 8.8% profit. So our profit jumped from $33,000 to now $88,800. Now, not bad at all. Now, one thing I did forget to put in this slide when I put this together was the cost of the consultant.
That's true.
Right? So maybe the consultant came in for a day and came up with this whole idea. So let's pretend there's a $2,000 fee in there somewhere, but you're still at about an 8% profit. You'd be at $86,000 from $33,000. I would say the consultant, he did his job. He did a good job.
He doubled your profits.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong. Consultant A is good. Okay. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about is guests per day is what we call a linear KPI. And what that means is if we were able to graph the amount of effectiveness of this program, this would be a straight line. Okay, it would be a linear line. And basically what we're saying is more people equal more money. Okay, if we're making $1 profit per person, 100 people, $100 profit, 120 people, $120 profit. So it's just a linear KPI. Okay, so we could go with that plan, or we could suggest, let's get a second opinion. Right? There's like kind of, when you go to a doctor and he tells you something and you want a second opinion. So we're going to get a second opinion. We're going to call consultant B So that'll be consultant Burns, right? We'll make B for Burns. Burns. And consultant B, so Donald says, no, that's a good idea. Well, consultant A said it's good, but instead, I think we should do some internal training with the staff. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll get them better educated on the menu. We'll teach them how to upsell sides better, upsell desserts better. We'll educate them on the wine pairing. And our goal will be to increase the guest check average by 20%. So we'll leave the guest count alone, but let's go for guest check average and see if we could just be better at selling what we already have here in the restaurant. Okay, sounds like a plan. What do you project for this, Donald? And he says, well, if we do that, we're not going to increase our guest count. So we're still only at 100 guests per day. Okay, we're still going to be open 5 days a week. But now our guest check average is going to jump from $35 a guest to $42 a guest. So even though we're only dealing with 100 people, they're spending just a little bit more money on average. Okay, for sales, that's going to give us $4,200 a day in sales. It's going to give us $84,000 a month in sales. And just like consultant A, we broke the $1 million ceiling. Okay, so we're making $1,008,000 a year in sales. Okay, let's look at our expenses. Our food cost stays at 30%. So we have our $302,400 in food costs. But now our labor costs drop because we're not servicing any more customers. Nope. So we really don't need any more labor involved in this. So our labor cost stays the same at $252,000 or drops to 25%. So that's a big advantage over consultant A. Our fixed expenses stay fixed at $302,000, representing now 30% of the total. This time we did put a trainer fee in there for $2,000 for Donald to come in for a day and do all this training with the staff. How do we do for profit in the end? Wow. When we add these numbers up, our profit is now $149,000, $149,200, or now we are at a 14.8% profit. Okay, so consultant A doubled our profits from 4 to 8%. Consultant B more than tripled, almost quadrupled our profits, pretty close to quadrupling them. Same plan almost, just a little different way to look at it. But this is the difference between a linear KPI and a multiplicative KPI. Guest check average is a multiplicative KPI because what it does is it's multiplying the cost or the effectiveness on every single ticket that comes in. So the effectiveness is much greater. And which one would you go with, Pam? What do you think? What should we go with in our restaurant here?
I mean, this is pretty obvious. Consultant B gave you the better deal here. And also, I think it's worth pointing out too that with consultant A, you brought in 20 more guests per day, which means that's 20 more people per day or 100 more people per week that you had to serve, that you had to get the meal right for, that you had to staff your restaurant for. So that was more work to get 120 guests per day and less increase in your profits.
Right.
Exactly. If you look at it, what Pam is saying is the increased guest count strains the entire operation because it's 20 more people that have to be seated by the host. It's 20 more people that have to be served by servers. It's 20 more meals that have to be cooked in the kitchen. So the whole restaurant feels the increased stress of that increased guest count. So you're absolutely right with that.
Yeah, and we're also giving that owner a lot of credit to say you can do an extra 20 guests per day with no decrease in your guest check average. That's assuming that your service hasn't suffered at all. People are still getting the same experience and the servers are able to get the same guest check average. And I know we were just talking about this recently. If you want to elaborate on the likelihood of that happening, Darren.
Absolutely.
He knows
what Pam is talking about, and this just happened literally like a week ago, or just a little over a week ago. We were in our restaurant, and to an owner, when I say we were in our restaurant, they're like, "Well, of course you were in your restaurant. You own the restaurant." But one thing you need to realize is we run our business like a business, not like a restaurant. So I'm not here all the time. As a matter of fact, I'm here a very limited amount of time. We spend maybe a week to 2 weeks a month at most in our restaurant. Other than that, we're traveling. We're, either in Florida or somewhere in the country traveling. We're not tied to our restaurant. When I'm here, I'm not working in my restaurant. I'm just observing the restaurant. Even if one of the staff members comes up to me and says, how do I do this? How do I do that? What do I tell them?
I don't work here. What are you asking me for? I don't work here.
That's it. I tell them, I say, look, I'm just a hang around. Like don't pay attention to me. I'm just here. And that's it. Yeah. Because we run our business we run our restaurant like a business. But one thing I noticed was I didn't see pre-busing taking place fast enough. I didn't feel our guests were getting what we call the Known As experience. The name of my restaurant is called Known As Kitchen. And they weren't getting that full experience that I look for, or that we look for. So I said to the manager who runs the restaurant for us when we're not here, I said to her, Brooke, let's put some extra staff on. As a matter of fact, double the staff. She looked at me like I was crazy. She goes, what? Double the staff? I said, yeah, I'll take the hit on payroll. I said, I just want to see what happens. I want to see the effectiveness on if I gave them half the tables to service, if we could do a better job. And then we could always ramp it back up again. But I need to know, number one, that my guests are getting the experience we want. So she was like, okay, I'll do it. So the following weekend, we doubled the staff. So now everyone went from, let's say, just using round numbers, instead of doing 8 tables, they had 4 tables, okay? Mm-hmm. Our guest check average increased from an average of like $28 to an average of $34 or $35, almost $6 a table, $6 a guest check average, because now they had so much time on their hands. They were selling the wine better. They were pairing it better with the meals. They had more time to spend at the table. They were more attentive. They were better at upselling desserts. They were better at, adding meatballs to the penne alla vodka or something like that. The guest check average went through the roof. So outweighed the additional payroll. And not only that, improved our experience to the customer. Oh yeah. Yeah, tenfold. It was so much better. So much better.
You've actually experienced that where you've did like record number nights. And I remember you had a front of house manager, Sam, right?
Yes.
Tell us that experience, that experience you had.
Yeah, well, Sam, he was great. Sam worked with us from when, Known As Kitchen was just an idea, and he stayed with us right up until he went away to college, to nursing school, and just couldn't juggle the two anymore. Had to focus all his efforts on school. So we love Sam. He's great. And what happened one night though is we average about 180 to 185 people a night. Let's say 175, 185, and that's kind of our sweet spot. When we do that, the fulfillment times are right, the guest check averages are right, everything's right. Well, one night, it was just really busy. It was a busy summer night. And he came to me all excited. We had done 225 people. And he goes, look at this. We broke 200. This is the highest record we've ever had. We've broke 200 a couple times, but 225, we never served that many people before. Mm-hmm. And he was so happy and he was so excited until I showed him the numbers. And what I showed him was that by doing 225 people, our fulfillment times increased, our discounts and comps increased because there were some people that were unhappy because their fulfillment time was a little higher. The guest check average dropped because instead of spending the time to really be with the customers at the table, now we're kind of just rushing to get food out, just get the food out, get the table turned. And I said to him, I go, congratulations, we did another 40 extra people today. You're right. We strained our business, we strained our kitchen, and we actually made less profit than had we done 185 people. So please, let's not ever do this again. 175 to 185 is our sweet spot. More people do not equal more money, right? And this is another KPI, right? So if we're talking about KPIs, there's a KPI called capacity, right? What is your capacity? But what is your ideal capacity? Is that something you've looked at in your restaurant? Do you equate being busier with making more money? Or have you really taken the time to say, how much profit do I get when I do 150 customers versus 200 customers versus 250 customers, right? What is that place where I'm I'm optimizing my profitability for my restaurant.
That's a huge question that people don't ask. And, you know, and you're smart enough, Darren, where you actually start asking that question, and now you have the formula, and now you guys know.
Yes, absolutely. So we want to cap it at a certain point. We don't want more customers. We love all our customers. We love all our guests, but thanks for thinking of us. Maybe make a reservation for Wednesday night when we're not so busy.
There you go. I wanted to bring up this slide because when we talk about KPIs and talk about ease, you know, and one of the things that I was really big on is when I first started talking to Darren about this KPI dashboard and this KPI software that he uses, I was like, you know, this is great, but the thing I know about working with restaurants for over 40 years is that if it's not simple, they won't use it.
No, it won't.
All right. And then Darren gave me like a kind of a background. He goes, and here's the story he kind of told me. He's like, you know, you see your car dashboard like this, right? And I said, yeah. He said, do you know it really looks like this? I'm like, what?
It's really the truth. You know, if you're just listening to this on the podcast, Donald was showing a car dashboard, and now he's showing really the computer language called ASC2 or ASC II. Some people call it.
I could not read that to save my life. I don't know I don't know what the temperature, what in that code right there. I would be totally lost. I would not know what my speed is, what my tire pressure is. I wouldn't know anything.
You just have digital data being sent to your dashboard, and your dashboard's taking it all apart, and it's reading all this data that's coming in and saying, oh, this is the speedometer, and he's going 60 miles an hour. Oh, and this is the fuel gauge, and he's going, you know, this is how much gas he has in the car. But if we looked at it the other way, it wouldn't make any sense to us, right? And this is what, you know, a lot of times people open a restaurant, and one of the first things we choose, one of the first tools we choose is our POS system, right? And we say to the POS, oh, can I get reports out of my POS? Well, of course you can. You know, we give you all that information. That's what the POS salesman will say to you. We give you all that information.
It's all in there. And it is. But
it is
all over the place in there.
Yes, they're not lying to you. They're right.
No, they're not lying.
So you could spend all your time you know, printing out these dashboards like this, or printing out these reports, and you could look for the data, you could mine for the data, but you're not going to find it very easily, right? Or we could take all that data and we could just put it on a nice, beautiful dashboard for you that you could look down at that dashboard and drive your restaurant right to Orange Theory without any problem. Without any problems at all.
Yeah, and what we're looking at right now is we're looking at a picture of the KPI Mastery dashboard, which is, I mean, I'm telling you, from a restaurant standpoint, being a restaurant owner and operator and myself in the past, if I had this back when I had my restaurants, I could have probably made so much more money, and I made pretty good money. But I'm telling you, this would have made my life so easy. And again, what we try to do is we try to create new habits. So the habit we teach in our mastermind group is this, that you have someone on your team, not necessarily you, someone on your team enters the data every night. And it's like, what, 8 key numbers they have to put in every night?
Yeah, it's just quick. You know, we were on a call once. We were on a mastermind call, and Brooke was on it. And Brooke, like I say, she runs our restaurant, right? She's in the kitchen. She runs the restaurant for us. And Donald was talking about KPIs, and someone said, you know, well, how hard is it? How much time do I have to spend? And Brooke, you know, just said, well, I just do it over a cup of coffee. It takes me about like 3 or 4 minutes, and it's no big deal. I make my coffee, I open up the laptop, and I just enter in the numbers. And literally, I couldn't have asked for better testimony than that. And that was not prearranged. That was just telling the truth. And that's all it does take. It takes 3 or 4 minutes. You enter in the information, and then you could see exactly how your restaurant is performing. You know, if you want to relate it to the car again, how much gas is in the car? How fast am I going? What's the temperature? Same thing here. Like in a second, you can see exactly the performance of your restaurant and know, what do I need to do to fix this?
Right.
And once you have this too, we just heard this from someone the other day on one of our calls. It's like Donald tried to drive without his dashboard the other day, and he ripped the towel off. Like, no, I need to know. I need my dashboard. That's what it's there for. When a restaurant owner gets used to having this, then they can't imagine not having it. They can't imagine what they did before it. It's a pretty amazing tool.
Yeah. It changes habits. And then remember, when you change habits, change your restaurant.
Exactly. Let me just work off what Pam just said for a second. Okay. You don't know how good it could be. Okay. So if you're, my age, let's say, or if you're even 40 and above, let's say, there was a time when you learned how to drive, there were no backup cameras, right? What did you do? You put it in reverse and you looked in the mirror, right? Or you turned your head around and you back your car up. Now you get in a car, you put it in reverse, you have this big giant screen that projects your car behind you, and it has lines, and it says if you turn your wheel this way, you're gonna hit the telephone pole. If you hit, it guides you so perfectly. Nowadays, people who are used to those backup cameras, if it stops working, if it malfunctions, they don't even know how to look in their mirror. They think they can't even back their car up anymore because they've grown accustomed to it. But back then, they didn't know how good it could be, right? Well, that's how this is. If you're running your restaurant without looking at KPIs, you think that's the norm for you, right? And you're like, well, I'm running my restaurant, it's okay. You don't realize how good it could be, right? It's kind of like the slide 2 slides ago where we showed you were making $33,000 a year in profit, not realizing you could have been making $150,000 a year in profit, right? And all it took was a 1-day visit from a consultant for $2,000, and you spent $2,000, and now you made what, 120 extra? I'll do that. I'll take that deal all day. I'll give Donald $2,000. He gives me back 120,000 all day.
I spent 90 minutes with one of our mastermind members. We went over, now this is a little more advanced stuff. We went over some deep menu engineering, but I showed him just by doing some simple changes on his menu and some simple menu engineering in a 90-minute call, increased his profit 7%, which was $150,000 in his pocket for 90 minutes of work.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if I want to get in shape, should I just go buy a set of weights, or should I go to a gym and have someone instruct me on what exercises I should do? Right? Yeah. I'm a pilot. Should I have gone to flight school and learned how to fly, or should I just jump in a plane and I'll figure it out in the air?
No, and actually I want to elaborate on the reverse camera analogy, because I just had to drive a vehicle with no reverse camera the other day. I had to back it out of my garage. And I grew up with no reverse camera. I'm old enough to have done that. And I know how to use my mirrors, but there's a blind spot right behind the car that no mirror can show you. And I've got 3 kids, and guaranteed I'm going to run over a bike or a scooter or something if I can't see that blind spot. And so I had to get the car out of gear, get out of my vehicle and go back and look at it, make sure that there's nothing behind me. And then I got back in, and then I felt comfortable backing up. It's you're not even aware sometimes of the blind spots until you get used to uncovering them, being able to see it. And it's the same thing with having a dashboard like this. You can run your restaurant, but it'll be inefficient unless you know exactly what direction you need to go and which KPI you need to focus on and how.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So great analogy. Thank you.
And then the third thing you must do to grow your profits is you must be consistent, because everything in the universe tends to go to entropy. Everything tends to disorder. And Pamela is going to elaborate a little bit on that. She has this great kind of this psychological term she tells our mastermind group. So Pam, I want you to take it over from here.
Yeah, so I have a statistics background that also kind of comes from psychology, but there's something called regression to the mean when you talk about statistics. So let me explain this for a couple minutes here. So if I were to take, let's say I had 100 people and I told them to flip a coin 100 times, and most people are going to get 50-50 heads and tails or close to it. But there's going to be a few people that get like 90 times out of the 100, they're going to get heads or tails, one of the two. They're outliers, right? They're not the norm. They're not average. So I could say those people are outside of average. They're either really good or really bad if I have heads or good, for example. But if I were to repeat that, those outliers are going to be closer to the mean the next time around. It's just because the first time it was entirely due to chance that they were outliers. And restaurants, we've already talked about the fact that the majority of them have something around 3 to 5% profits. That's average. So there's a reason. It's like every restaurant is kind of being pulled to that average. It's because the majority of people that you hire are going to have some bad habits. The majority of, food gets put out unless there's really, really clear systems in place. Sometimes mistakes are going to happen. And there's just things that happen that restaurants will go to that average unless there's a leader who's consistently pushing them to be an outlier and consistently making it so that the restaurant's performance is not due to chance. Because if it's left to chance, it's going to regress to the mean. It's going to become an average restaurant. And so your challenge as a restaurant owner is to make sure that nothing's left to chance in terms of, your restaurant being great. So there's a few things that we can talk about, and I want Donald and Darren to weigh in on that. But things like, is your food good? How do you make sure that that's not left to chance? How do you put the systems and the standards in place so that there's consistency and every single meal that goes out is a great meal? And it's not just, oh, we had a good cook on that, or he did a good job that time, but sometimes he doesn't. So let's talk about some more examples like that.
I could give you an example from last night, Pam, of exactly what you're talking about. So I had some friends come down. They're from Washington State, and they stayed with us for about 4 days. It was him, his wife, and 2 of their 3 children. And they spent the day, they went down to Mount Rushmore, visited some of the sites down in that area, in Custer area. And now they came to the restaurant at night for dinner, and beautiful. So we're going to sit down and have dinner together. So I don't eat dinner in my restaurant a whole lot, not as a customer, yes, I eat here, but I don't get the full experience. So now that I'm with them, though, I want the full experience. So we have this server, and she's a very good server, okay? And in my restaurant, we are definitely not the average restaurant, okay? I push for training. I push for very high standards. I push for very high profitability in our restaurant, and we achieve all these goals, okay? Now, we change our menu quarterly, right? So every seasonally, we change it. So it's April 6th or 7th today. I don't know what the date is here, but we just changed the menu a week ago. Mm-hmm. So my server comes over to the table, and I love her. She's a great server. And she said, what are you having? And I said, well, tell Chris, it's me, and Chris will make me something, different. And whatever he recommends, I'll have. And she said, would you like soup or salad or an appetizer? And I said, yeah, what's the soup of the day? And she kind of looked at me for a second, and she goes, the tomato bisque is on the menu. Now, I didn't show her the menu, but no, the tomato bisque isn't on the menu. We took the tomato bisque off the menu just a week ago, right? So I said, do me a favor, go ask Chris if we have the tomato bisque, and then ask him what the soup of the day is. So sure enough, she realized that she had made a mistake. And there was probably 3 mistakes that I picked up being a customer in my own restaurant. So naturally, Brooke, could you come here for a second? I said, did you train all the servers on the new menu? She said, yes. You have some more training to do. I said, they clearly didn't absorb it. Maybe you really didn't train them on the menu. Maybe you kind of mention the new menu to them, right? We need to start giving them pop quizzes every day. So is this a really big deal? No, it's not. It's not a big deal at all. But it's exactly what Pam was saying, is that I would never tolerate a server that doesn't know the menu, but because a week went by and nobody confirmed the testing, regression to the mean. All of a sudden, she doesn't know what's on the menu. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, she doesn't know we took tomato bisque off the menu. And if I didn't pick that up and say something, guess what? There's probably 3 more things that she doesn't know about the menu that I didn't even realize right now. So it was a perfect example of what you were saying. Just happened to be last night, Pam.
Yeah, that is a perfect example. So in an average restaurant, there's going to be servers that don't know the menu very well. Mm-hmm. In an average restaurant, there might be, and we've talked about how lights could be too dim or not dim enough, depending on the time of day. They don't get changed. The music might be too loud. It's not creating the right atmosphere. If your atmosphere in your restaurant is due to chance, like who happens to be working that day and whether or not they create the atmosphere, then you're going to regress to the mean.
Yeah, I can give you an example. So a lot of times I'll go out, mastermind clients will have me come out and do a site visit with their restaurant. So last week I was out at a mastermind member's restaurant, and they have quite a few restaurants. And the thing was, at the one restaurant, which was their prime location, their kind of home base, they were very specific about the brand, especially about the music. It was, it's a kind of a Hispanic kind of themed restaurant. They had a lot of country Western music. It was really, I really felt like the vibe was there. But then when I went to other locations, the music was really, really radically different. One place had like some 90s rock. One place had like some 80s stuff like Pat Benatar, which I like Pat Benatar, but it was totally disconnected with the brand.
Yeah.
Which, and it really kind of, and I said to the owner, I said, it really gives me mixed signals when I come out here and I see this. And then another thing was, they had a new location to open up, and the menu, the general manager out there decided he wanted to do a different menu. So he actually broke free and just did this really cheap, cheesy looking printed menu off the computer. It did not look like the brand at all. It was, horrible. Totally horrible.
Often is left to chance with restaurants, and that's marketing. There's a lot of times when restaurant owners or managers, whoever's in charge of the marketing, don't exactly know what to do, and they're not tracking things to see what's being successful. So a lot of times a restaurant's marketing strategy is not much different than throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, and then throwing different spaghetti at the wall the next week, not paying attention to what stuck last week. So it really is left to chance, the marketing strategy, unless you have some consistency and you're tracking what's working for your restaurant.
The more you leave to chance, the more you open yourself up for issues.
Absolutely.
Definitely. What else you got, Pam?
What else? Well, this is, Donald, this is your stuff, but menu design is another one. If you are not, if you don't have a strategy behind menu design and you use that same strategy with each time that you redesign your menu, that's another one.
I could talk for days about menu design, and I say it every time I go to a restaurant. Most restaurants have, they're totally missing the point on their menus. Their menus are totally designed wrong.
One thing I could say is, if you're on this call and you're a restaurant owner, if you ever get the chance to go have a meal with Donald, it's quite
an experience.
He is critiquing everything. Yes,
it's an experience.
Menu is a big thing.
So when I first went to meet with Darren took me around to all the restaurants in his market, right? So we wanted, and I always said, let's go to the restaurants in your market so I can understand what your competition is. And I'm number one. I was like, after eating at 4 of them, I was like, you guys are going to do so great, because the bar is so low in your market. It's like low hanging fruit. But we went to one restaurant in particular that was pretty well known. And the first thing they did, they sat us down, they handed the menu, and there's a huge Sharpie cross out across the menu. And I was like, oh my God, that's like menu design no 101. Don't Sharpie out your menu. Just come on, man. Just print new menus. It's like number one thing. Number two is don't print off cheesy looking menus off your computer when you have that client in the mastermind group that I went to. They have a beautifully designed menu, very brand driven, very, very beautiful fonts, beautiful papers, beautiful layout and everything. But this guy just thought it would be better if he printed off something off his computer in the office. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No, don't do that. Please don't do that.
No, and I can tell you also, just because of the way our brains work, if you're able to pretty consistently create a really good experience at your restaurant, if that's a customer's first experience, that's the one that they're going to hold on to. So the more you can be consistent with that, then they're going to be forgiving when they come back the next time and if something's not quite right, they'll go, oh, you guys do a great job. It's totally fine this time. But if they have a bad experience when they come to your restaurant for the first time, that's what they're going to be expecting from that point on. So again, the more consistent you can be and leave less to chance, the more likely you're going to be able to handle those things that when they don't go well.
Exactly.
Not lose your customer base.
Yeah. And for anyone listening on the call today or watching on the YouTube channel, if you want to jump in, if you're ready to jump in and you want to start improving your restaurant right away, and again, not waiting till, I'm going to start next week. Don't wait. Jump in. We have a free 30-day trial of our mastermind group. All you got to do is just go and sign up for it. It's at www.restaurantssimplified.com. Get started. We have a foundations program. We'll teach you all the basics. I'll take you through step by step, give you the foundational core that you need. And then from there, you basically graduate into our advanced mastermind program. So that's where the real fun happens. Right?
Absolutely. And it's you have nothing to lose by trying, right?
You have nothing to lose.
30 days, no charge.
Right.
Take the information for 30 days if you want.
And we actually have a live workshop coming up at the end of April 25th, 26th in Scottsdale that we're doing it this time in Scottsdale. In June, we might be doing it somewhere else. We're deciding where we want to go for June, where we want what part of the country we want to be in for weather. But we have one seat left. It's a free workshop. Basically, all you have to do is you have to email me, Donald@therestaurantcoach.com. I'll send you an application. We'll review your application. If you qualify, the seat's yours. I got one seat left. It's a very small. It's called Restaurant Owner Boot Camp. I'm going to take you through the 8 driving forces of restaurant success. And the team's going to be there. Darren's going to be there. Pamela's going to be there. You're going to see, and actually you'll get to meet some of the actual members of our mastermind group because a lot of them are coming to it also. So,
yes.
Yeah.
There's one big advantage to being part. Well, there's a lot of big advantages to being part of a group like that. But having accountability to a group of people, not just coaches or consultants, but the people in the group with you, that really, really helps people. That accountability factor and being able to say, here's what I've been doing, here's if it works, and I'm going to keep doing that and make sure people are checking in with me. That helps that regression to the mean a lot.
Right.
So all these people are pushing to be an outlier, pushing to be one of those great restaurants, and they can help each other.
Yeah, and one of the things too is you might have the plan or you might see the path, but you might be working on the wrong things in the wrong order. Like we had some people on our mastermind call today, like asking about, special event and catering menus. Like, all right, well, have you cost out your regular menu yet? No, not yet. Well, let's do that first before we get into some other stuff,
Yeah. And you don't realize that every KPI is having an effect in another area of your business.
That's true.
We have one restaurant that we work with that wanted to get more production out of, it's a pizza place, wanted to get more production out. So someone said you need to put in an oven that would cook more pizza quicker, right? You get more production of the pizza. So he puts in the oven only to find out that the person making the dough can't keep up with the output of the oven now. So now he has to put on another person, 2 people to supply the oven because the oven puts out so much pizza.
Yep.
Well, now it turns out that the freezer isn't big enough to store the dough, to make the dough, to supply. So the new oven now cost him a new employee. Now he needs a new freezer. And now he's working on the supply of the dough to the freezer to try to get that right, not realizing all this was going to take place. He's like, I just wanted an oven that would put out more. Now I'm remodeling my whole kitchen. Like, I didn't know about all this, right? So you don't realize, and that's how KPIs are, right? You look at one realizing it's being affected either positively or adversely by other KPIs.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, you know what? I want to say thanks for joining us today on this one. We got one more part of this series, this 3-part series, and we're gonna hit that tomorrow. Should we tease out what we're gonna do tomorrow, or are we gonna hold it as a secret?
No, you can tease it out.
Tease out tomorrow?
Yeah, because I'm not even sure what it is. So you're teasing it to me.
Teasing it to Darren. Well, tomorrow we're gonna pull it all together, and we're gonna give you, today we told you. So yesterday we talked about mindset. We kind of gave you a high-arcing view of what a mastermind group is, the benefits of joining a mastermind group. Today we gave you 3 exact steps you need to take. Tomorrow we're actually going to walk you through the roadmap that we use with our mastermind group. And we're going to use the analogy of kind of like building a house. And we're going to show you exactly why you got to have things in certain orders. If you don't have things in certain orders, it's like if you're building a house and then, Darren's in charge of, the foundation, I'm in charge of the framework, and Pamela in charge of furnishing. Pamela starts bringing sofas and chairs to the empty lot and starts laying them out on the ground. I'm like, Pam, what are you doing? Well, I got all the furnishing. I want to start getting the room arranged. You're like, but we don't even have. There's no concrete yet, Pam. There's not even any walls or windows yet, Pam. Well,
and now all that furniture's in the way.
And now all the furniture's in the way. But unfortunately, that's how a lot of restaurants get run. They start doing the things they want to do instead of the things they have to do.
Yes.
And so tomorrow we're going to actually give you the step-by-step. Today we talked about the 3 big things, which is, mindset, understanding what KPIs make a real impact, and also having accountability and understanding what regression to the mean is. Tomorrow we're going to show you how to build your restaurant just like a house. That's what we're going to share with you tomorrow. And we're going to show you exactly every step you need to take, what order you need to take. And if you do it, and I'm just telling you right now, whether you work with us or not, if you take what we teach you tomorrow and just start doing it, you will have a lot better restaurant by the time you're done.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to talk about. That's what we're talking about tomorrow. The house. Pam's already shopping on Wayfair for furniture already.
You guys need to hurry up. I'm ready to furnish this place.
She's ready. I'm ready. I already got the walls painted. I already got everything. Like Darren's like, I haven't even decided. I haven't even leveled the ground yet to pour concrete.
So, and me, my background, I want all that in place on paper before we start anything.
It's gotta be down on paper.
Pam, no couches yet. I gotta put you on hold.
Yeah. And also too, and tomorrow when I use the house analogy, we're gonna take you through kind of step by step how Darren set up Nona's Kitchen from the beginning to where he just celebrated his 1-year anniversary, and the man is spending most of his time at his second home down in Florida with his grandkids and with his adult children, doing what he wants to do. He's not chained to his restaurant, but he's still enjoying high profits. He still has a valuable restaurant. It's still a passion project of his wife, but they still are enjoying their life. And we're going to show you exactly, because Darren did a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in the house. He did those things step by step before he even met me. And that's one of the things that impressed me, is that he had a lot of that foundational stuff already down. He had the concrete laid and leveled before he talked to me, which made my job easier to help him build up on top of it. So we're going to hit all that tomorrow. So tune in for our next episode, and we're going to give you the step-by-step how your restaurant is like building a house.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Donald, for having us today.
Yeah, thanks, Donald.
Yeah, and if you're tuning in, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it.
Boom.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Coach Podcast with Donald Burns. Tune in next time as we serve up more ways to maximize your potential. Visit our website at www.therestaurantcoach.com or download episodes at iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Spotify.